Hello, this is Russell from
Tombs of Evil.
and you're listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 233, and you are with your High Priest of Khonshu, Ray. Hello, and I am flying solo, not commando, again towards the end of this week, and we're going to have a look at a LUNAR-PICK modern run review. So this is because of a waxing crescent up in the night sky. So welcome everyone. And on the cards for tonight, on the registration cards, it's a revisit of Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 13, The Uses of Restraint. Now, before any of that, of course, a huge thank you to our Patroonies, those listed as co-producers and executive producers on each of our episodes. You can see their names, associated with this episode, just in the show notes there. Also check out the Patreon temple over at ITK Moon Knight, where everyone that has pledged we'll get their names up in lights there. Having said that as well, I should add the past and present Patroonies there, so maybe that's something I should do. Anyway, a big thank you to Daniel, Drew, Justin, Derek, Kyle, Wayne, Jordan, Josh, James, Anthony, and Michael. Thanks each and every one of you for contributing and being part of this show. It's really encouraging to know that there are those that, feel strong enough about it that they'll, fork out some dosh to help the show, thrive. Not just survive, it will thrive because, we're on to bigger and better things. We've recently just released our official website, itkmoonnight.com. We've got our own domain name, and of course stuff like email is now just feedback at itkmoonnight.com. So looking a bit more professional, looking a bit more swish and schwanky, hopefully not wanky. But yeah, each and every bit of it goes towards the show, and a huge thank you. I think the next target, I think we'd reach it. We're just shy of it, actually. I think the target is if we get up to something like 150 a month, then I'll be able to subscribe to a sound effects library, which I hope to use. I hope to plunder for our serial adventure, which is ticking on nicely. More about that a little bit later on. A shout out finally just to a few of our sponsors. As always, our top tier Patroonies, those top tier Patroonies on I always get this wrong, on the Stephen Grant level. I could be wrong. It might be the Mark Spector level. They also have an opportunity to spruce their wares. So a big shout out to Tombs on SoundCloud, Drew Tombs. He also takes care of Lurk Music on Bandcamp. So both of those accounts, go check them out and see if you can support them. One is based on dance music produced works of Drew, and the other on Bandcamp with Lurk Music, more on a horror and sci-fi inspired soundscapes. Also as well, Daniel Doing, good friend of the show, his creation Fringe Knight, an original indie comic based on Erie, Pennsylvania's very own mysterious superhero. Worth checking out. Got to get Daniel back on the show, maybe have a bit of a chat about it. He's up to issue 6, I think. He's got stories up, till to the hundreds. So there's plenty of talent there, and he's also a great cosplayer too. And finally as well, Dreamland Comics from Schaumburg, Illinois, the superhero superstore for all your back issue needs. Now, Loonies, we are going to jump into this LUNAR-PICK modern run review, as mentioned. Look, we have covered this before. So this was upon request, actually, to cover this issue. I absolutely have no problems revisiting issues as well. I mean, for one, there might be some newer listeners who who may not have caught the previous episodes. So it's always good to revisit. And also as well, perspectives and opinions change throughout time. Also depends on who you chat with as well. People have all different thoughts, and thankfully we have plenty of feedback actually. So I'm not going to dwell too much on it by myself, because I'll let you know my thoughts on this issue. But again, this was previously covered in actually one of the earlier iterations of an Isla Ra session back in episode 43, titled "We're Not Jenna's Sons." So that was me, Ray, and I had a guest, Rick. So there you go, Rick and Ray. And I was chatting with Rick about his top 4 books, and one of them was this one, issue 13. Also in episode 96, a fair few episodes later, titled "Part of the Journey is the End," or a psych evaluation. That was the original High Priests, Connor, Rebecca, and myself. We all came together to have a little bit of a chat about, I believe it was, Infinity War or Endgame. It was probably might be Endgame. That was such a big moment when that movie dropped. So we had a bit of a chat about that, because why not, regardless of whether it had Mooney or not. But then we also reviewed issue 13 again. And finally, more recently, episode 171, one of the moonwalks. I've just titled "Application for Shield Card." We actually did an audio reproduction of the whole comic. So if you don't have the comic, or you're on the go and you want to read it, so to speak, we have an audiobook version for you in episode 171. So you can listen to that. Hopefully, don't fall asleep from my dull tones. But from memory, had Loony, Corey Hardiman, playing the role of Mark Spector. A lot of fun. Corey's got a great voice, so you should not miss out on that. Anyway, Loonies, as I mentioned, and for those that haven't listened to LUNAR-PICKs before, what we generally do, I'll just go through some of the credits, where you can find the issue to catch up on it. And like I said, you may even just want to listen to it in audio form in one of our episodes. I'll go through a bare bones, which is basically a synopsis. So again, if you haven't read it, or you just want a recap of what this issue was about, I'll go through that. And then I'll go just through some rough aspects, like the writing, the art, the themes. I won't dwell too much on it again, because I'm just by myself here. And hopefully, there's a lot of feedback, which is great. So we'll go through the feedback, because I'm very keen to hear what you all had to say as well. And we'll cap off that with a moon rating. I'm going to stick with the rating I gave it last time as well. So there's no surprises there. All right. So, released December 2007. Again, this is Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 13, The Uses of Restraint. Writer Charlie Huston, penciler and inker Tomm Coker, colorist Dean White, and letterer Joe Caramagna. And you can actually read this either in floppy format. It's still readily available. It's on digital, not only Comixology, but the Marvel app, but it's also on Marvel Unlimited as well, so if you have the subscription to that. We know next year, I think it's around April 2022, there's going to be another omnibus dropped, which will include the Huston, the Benson, the Hurwitz run, and I think the Bendis. I'm not too sure, but it's going to be quite a sizable omnibus. Definitely worth considering. Great to have that as a collection. And finally, look, it's been released as a trade, paperback and as hardcovers as well, but they're kind of out of print. But if you can track them down on eBay or a third-party seller, then they're, again, worthy of a shelf, being on the shelf, being shelf-worthy. I guess that's what I'm saying. Anyway, I'm going to start to hit my stride now. This is courtesy of Wiki. I had a little look before and I didn't have one myself. I was going to just reproduce the one that I had written before, but it seems like I hadn't one. So this is courtesy of Wiki, and here is the Bare Bones. Staking out a criminal, Moon Knight stands on a roof wanting to act, but this is after the events of civil war and non-registered vigilantes are prohibited. Moon Knight is cautious, but Khonshu wants his soldier to act. Meanwhile, Detective Flint interviews one in apparently a long line of criminals that have been branded with Moon Knight's crescent moon on their foreheads. Frenchie can't sleep thanks to thoughts of Mark and decides to go to Spectre's mansion. There he finds Ray Landers working in Moon Knight's garage. The two men talk about Loss and Mark before Ray drives a last truckload of Moon Knight's gear off the property. The mansion burns to the ground behind. Walking with her new boyfriend Taylor, Marlene tries to convince him that she does not miss the excitement of her past relationships. All the men in her life have either died or were too aggressive, and she is happy for a more boring life. But when the two are mugged, Marlene manages to fight off her attackers by stabbing them in the eyes with her keys. Mark arrives at a SHIELD facility for his registration interview with the psychologist Dr. Depford. The debriefing room is having its lock fixed by a mechanic, but Mark and Dr. Depford continue with the on-camera interview. Depford tries to provoke Mark as the lock mechanic is actually a security personnel, but Mark passes the test and the interview can continue without the extra protection. During the interview, Depford asks questions to clarify some of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s records: age, physical condition, abilities, connection to the moon, and is particularly interested in his multiple personalities. Depford asks Mark to look at the moon and by doing so brings out the Jake Lockley and Stephen Grant personalities. Depford tricks Stephen to look at the moon once again, causing him to fall into a sleep so Depford can record his official report, having determined that Mark is not fit for registration and may need to be prosecuted for his activities as Moon Knight. However, Khonshu begins to speak through an unconscious Mark, revealing that he knows Dr. Depford's deepest, darkest secrets. A terrified Depford signs off on Mark's registration and deletes the recording of the interview. Mark walks to the back of his car and thanks the profile for the intel on Depford. Moon Knight later takes out the criminal for who he was stalking, brands his forehead, and shoves his superhuman registration card in the criminal's mouth. Mark returns to his townhouse to find Marlene on his stoop. He takes her inside, cleans the blood off her hands, and takes her to bed. Yes, so there you go, listeners. That is a bare bones, courtesy of Wiki, of what this issue is all about. Now, overall impressions, look, I think this is one of my favourite issues to date of Moon Knight. It is understandably dark. There's some violence in it. It dives into Moon Knight's, I guess, not only his mental state, but there's also a strategy there that Moon Knight employs, and being in collaboration with the profile, it just makes for an interesting story. The art is great as well. It's something that we haven't seen because I guess we were used to, around this time, used to David Fincher's art of The Run, and then Mika Suian. So Tom Coker comes in, and this is like a one-off, and it works really well. Considering that it's part of a tie-in to Civil War, it's just really self-contained and really dark as well. I mean, we get a very what we discover as a morbid character in Dr. Depford. So just the tone of this whole story kind of gives it an unpleasantness, I'd say, but an unpleasantness in the, I guess, the vibe. The story itself is just really good. So, yeah, I mean, jumping into, I guess, writing-wise, Huston's right on his game here. He establishes more, I guess, through Detective Flint, the violence of Moon Knight and what distinguishes him from other characters and even vigilantes. So he kind of walks a fine line. We have, on one hand, the likes of, say, Spider-Man and Daredevil, where they are very much on the side of justice, no killing, let the law have the final word. On the other hand, we have like the likes of the Punisher, who will end you, basically. If you err on the wrong side of law, then you pay the ultimate price. And he makes sure that you, as a criminal, don't exist ever again. Now, the difference between that and Moon Knight is that we see him consciously just mutilating criminals. So it's almost as if they are paying the price, and they are, being walked through like the hall of shame as well, because they've got these things that are permanently etched in their forehead, disfigured basically for life. But Moon Knight doesn't kill them. He's not like the Punisher, but you could arguably say that he does something equally as terrifying and terrible and violent as just killing someone. Whereas Punisher will put a bullet in your head and you're dead, Moon Knight almost kind of wants you to suffer, which makes him a really dark character. And so we get this from the Huston run, and I like the use of Detective Flint here. Like we see him used sparingly in the runs, but he's used really good here. He's got his own little nuances as well. I think he says, just off the top of my head, I think it says, right. Having done the audio reproduction, it kind of leaps out to me more than just reading it in the comic book. If you have a look at it, yeah, he seems to have these little ticks of his own. But it was good to see how, I guess, he's kind of like the grizzled, jaded kind of authority figure that does sympathise, I guess, with Moon Knight. But I just liked his appearance in this issue. That was good as well. At the beginning as well, Khonshu playing games. I love the little cameo of Iron Man there. But we all know it's Khonshu, who, around this time has been very much like the Bushman visage, or the ripped off face of Bushman, that sort of stuff. The art is very reminiscent of, it did remind me of Alex Maleev as well, just a little bit more like realistic, like less comic booky, than the muscle bound David Finch, and that lends itself to this darker thing where I guess evil's different. It's not just it's not on the sleeve. It's not like your Doctor Doom, very comic booky, right on the nose kind of thing. This is the darkness, the evil of human nature, and I think the art works really well in that sense. Then there's understandably some violent moments there. I mean, not only with Moon Knight carving moon crescents in people's foreheads, but the likes of Marlene, when she gets attacked by these muggers with her boyfriend Taylor, she goes at it. She does the old Wolverine claws with her house keys, and she punches these people senseless. Again, we get to see Marlene not as a helpless person, not that she ever really was, but she does sometimes come across in the early Mensch run as very passive, and we always joke about the lingerie in the bedroom, but she really is an independent and strong individual, and again, Huston highlights this in this small kind of thing, and it kind of again also shows the tragedy, I guess, of she wants to get away from that lifestyle, and she said as well in the synopsis that she wants a bit more of a boring life, but it seems that lifestyle finds her, and at the end it's kind of telling that Mark takes her in and cleans her up by himself, that she can't escape that sort of violent world. And there's something a little bit scary and sad, that fact, for Marlene. Good to see Frenchie and Ray in there as well, getting to talk about Mark. So you get like a third party perspective on Moon Knight. And yeah, I mean, the big part of this issue is the confrontation between Dr. Depford and Moon Knight. And Dr. Depford, seemingly, from the get-go, he seems like someone that just has some, skeletons in his closet, and it comes out. And added to that is actually quite deceiving and cunning of Mark to use the profile. So what happens, the profile basically gets a read, because he's got this ability, let's call it a mutant ability, to read people, like just by being near them. And so he's read Depford, and he passes on this knowledge to Mark about how Depford has these really inclinations to kill as a kid, like, small animals, that sort of stuff, and his deep and darkest thoughts. And then Mark uses that under the guise of the therapy of bringing out Khonshu. So we know that Mark's probably just putting this all on just to entrap, I guess, Depford and get him to sign him off, give him the registration, which actually makes it a little bit confusing, because at the end he doesn't really want the registration card. He shoves it in the mouth of that criminal at the end. Maybe he's just thought that the whole thing is pointless. But he does do a number on Dr. Depford, and we see later on. I can't remember. We did cover that issue not that long ago. We do see what happens to Dr. Depford, and he does actually, unfortunately, he does kill himself, overcome by grief of his deepest, darkest secrets coming out. So all that thanks to Moon Knight and the profile. Yeah, so very kind of a dark tale here. And again, look, as I said, I'm not going to dwell too much on it. I enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and we do have some thoughts coming our way. So I'm going to give it Khonshu's rating. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I think that's what I gave it last time. It's a very strong issue. It works by itself. I would arguably give this to someone if someone said, "Oh, look, give me a good Moon Knight issue. See what you can make of it." Understandably, you'd have to know who the profile is and what they can do. But apart from that, it's a pretty cool self-contained story, and the art's great. So 9 out of 10. It's very hard to fault. And I'd put it up there with one of my favourites, up there with Ellis's issue 5, Scarlet, which I think with Declan Shalvey's art, it's just phenomenal. So so that's those are my thoughts on it. Look, we might just take a quick break, or give me an opportunity to play a couple of collective associated ads for you, just for some other wonderful shows, part of the collective, part of this informal network that we're part of. And when we come back, I'll just go through some of the nightlines. We've got some good feedback from a lot of people, so stay tuned.
Shadowed accident stole his sight, but incredibly it endowed young Matt Murdock with radar vision and heightened senses. Armed only with his athletic prowess, billy club, and indomitable courage, Matt battles injustice as a crimson-clad gladiator known as Daredevil. Are you a fan of Daredevil, the Man Without Fear? Then join me and my co-host Lil Hellfire every 2 weeks on the Capes and Lunatic Sidekicks podcast for the Devil You Know, the Daredevil podcast.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.
This is Greg Smallwood, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is episode 233, and that was a concise, I guess, recap and thoughts on Moon Knight, Volume 5, Issue 13, The Uses of Restraint. Now, we got some feedback here from some Loonies, so I'm keen to hear your thoughts here. Before we get into the issue, though, I just want to, a bit of a call back to our previous episode 232, where I talked about Moon Knight and music. So, on the Facebook group, got a message here from Justin, the Owl, Osgood, and Justin says, for So Justin has given some recommendations, I guess, for or what sort of music he has in his head when he reads Moon Knight comics. And Justin writes, I associate a lot of the first series with the music of Gary Newman, particularly the albums Telekin and I, Assassin. A lot of the first 20 or so issues of Mark Spector Moon Knight I associate with the music of Sandoz, one of the numerous aliases of Richard H. Kirk of Cabaret Voltaire. And The Other Void by Delita makes an ideal soundtrack for some of the later runs. Yes, thank you, Justin. Wow, I'm not very familiar with those musicians. I've heard of Gary Newman. I can't say I've heard much of his music, but that sounds really great. And I'd like to chase those up actually and see how they what they sound like and, how they fit in with the Moon Knight stories. And of course, our friend Noel, Looney Tunes, Tate from Delita, and their EP, The Other Void, a must listen to. If you guys out there, if everyone out there loves, reading Moon Knight, then check out The Other Void by Delita. It is 6 tracks based off the 6 issues of Warren Ellis. Works ideally with that, but it can work with many others. It's really cool. Good music. Anyway, so going back to, I guess, your thoughts on Moon Knight issue 13. So we'll start off with Facebook, the page. And there's a message here from the power of Chad Jernigan. And Chad writes, what a beautiful issue. I loved it. Honestly, one of my favourite rereads. There is violence, nostalgia, support cast, and the themes are so moody. Also, the fact that it uses such realistic expressions and proportions, while the panels draw out such heightened emotion, really adds a level of morose delirium to the pages. Very, very well written there, Chad, and very expressively described. I really want to know about Tommy Wiseau, and what he did to provoke Mark, as it seems he was a Crescent-branded victim in the stacks of Polaroids. That's true. That has been noted as well in our previous visitations to this issue. It's funny how he's there. A little in-joke there from Charlie Huston. I don't know. With all of the setting up for what comes next, hitting an old note and staying relevant, and all the gorgeous work, it gets a 7 out of 10. Keep the blood boiling. Yes, thank you so much, Chad, there. Sounds like you really enjoyed it. It is a fun reread. I say fun as in fun. It's not like it's light. It's a dark kind of tale, but it's very, very satisfying to read, I've got to say. Moving back now to the Facebook group, and we have some comments here. One from Julio Abelenda. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong. Julio says, maybe the best single issue in Moon Knight's history. Certainly the culmination of all good things Huston has been doing in his run. Moon Knight has never been so cold and wild and determined. Also the best act by the profile. Yes, thank you, Julio. Yeah, that's, I've got to rate it up there as well. I think it's one of the strongest issues, out there. Basically, what it has going for it is its self-containedness as well. There are many great issues in the Moon Knight canon, but they're kind of like parts of arcs and stuff, and of course there's nothing wrong with that, but this just works so well. So if you're trying to find a good single issue, it's hard to go past a one-shot, so to speak, but something that tells itself a really well-contained story, self-contained story. So thank you, Julio. We have another comment here from Corey Hardiman, no stranger to the show as well. Corey, as mentioned, he voiced Mark Spector in our audio reproduction of this issue back in, episode 171. So go check that out if you haven't already. And Corey says, easily one of my favourite issues of all time, from my favourite run of all time. Yes, and I do remember as well, Corey did choose issue 13 when I approached Corey if he wanted to do a moonwalk, an audio reproduction. So no surprises there, but thank you, Corey. We have another comment here from Jonathan Sapsud. And Jonathan writes, I find the Huston run too violent in general and could have done without the Crescent head cutting. But past that, it's a really clever story based on the interview with the government agent, where Moon Knight turns the tables and gets his ID card. A rare case of a line-wide event not interfering with the series, but offering something to play with. That's a very good point, Jonathan. So many times you have the series is kowtowing to the event and having to try and shoehorn something in, but this premise actually gave a lot for Huston to play with the character, and he introduced some the great character like Dr. Depford as well. The agent is a bit quick to fold though. The Marlene and Frenchie comebacks are nicely weaved in. The art is great, even if it feels like Huston and Coker are doing Bendis and Maleev's Daredevil a bit too much. Probably Huston's best issue? Yeah, Jonathan, I think arguably could be. It's, as I mentioned, very strong. The agent a bit quick to follow. Yeah, true. I guess again within the confines of the numbers of the pages that they have, and what Huston wanted to tell. I guess we had to kind of fast track that a little, but they're pretty big bombs to drop. And you could see that. You could see how someone would fold if something that you've kind of concealed or are ashamed of, or you don't want anyone to know. If they can't, if they're kind of laid, out to bare for everyone to see, or at least like some stranger is telling you this, or some god is telling you this when this guy's under hypnosis. That's pretty scary. But anyway, very good, and I did agree with you. There is very much a Bendis and Maleev vibe to it as well. So thank you, Jonathan. Next up, we have James Young. So James, one of the Patroonies, long-time Patroony, long-time part of the community. A huge thank you, James, for all your involvement and all your contributions as well. And you've left this one for issue 13. James says, loved it. My favourite issue of this volume, and of course it's not too violent. Incredibly well written and clever with sumptuous art by the incredible Tom Coker. This issue cannot be rated anything but a blue moon. And for those loonies who've not heard of the Black Monday murders, do seek it out. Coker's art truly makes that book sing. Wow, yes, I have heard of that as well, James, but thanks for reminding me. The Black Monday murders are worth checking out, and Loonies, if you can, we might have to put something in the show notes there, a link at least, so you get a bit more information on the Black Monday murders. But thank you for that recommendation, James. And of course, the art is great. Sorry, I'm just rereading your comment. And of course, it's not too violent. That's got to be a nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I mean, this always, Marlene with the keys in her hands, in the eyes, always gets me. So, thanks so much, James, for those comments. Moving on, still in our Facebook group, we have Lena. Very interesting to hear Lena's thoughts on this. So, Lena, again, for Loonies that may not know, Lena is helping us in our journey through understanding DID, which is one of the sub-segments of our idle chats, and just dispelling some myths with DID. Lena is part of a system, so she, along with Doug and many others, make up the system. They have DID, and Lena gives a very different perspective, I guess, to the comics that we review, and how DID is represented. So let's hear what Lena has to say here. And Lena says, I have mixed feelings about this one. Issues like this are why I'm making it a point to have separate ratings in my articles for the podcast, for how I liked it as a comic and how I thought of it as a representation of DID or mental health. As a comic, I definitely agree that it was a very well written and well drawn comic. It would definitely be a big fat waxing gibbous, maybe even a full moon for that aspect. However, seeing Mark basically turn his DID into a freak show to manipulate the government agent makes me, as someone with DID, a really cringe. It's not exactly helping to reduce stigma around DID. So for the DID mental health representation, I would rate it maybe a waxing crescent at the most, Lena. Thank you so much, Lena, and thank you so much for that insight. as well, into the DID. I certainly am getting more of a picture now with your comments, as well as the representation of DID. And looking at it, I guess, on that aspect, it's strange, isn't it? Because I wonder in this story whether Mark just puts it all on as well. It might be that fine line. I don't know whether really Depford does get him to look at the moon, and he does kind of switch alters, which we know, you can't. I mean, as we mentioned in that first article that Rebecca and I did, based on Lena's works, you can't really do. But the fact that Mark takes in with him the information from the profile of Dr. Depford and interweaves that into Khonshu, I'm doing that in air quotes, makes me wonder whether he actually is, it is a result of his DID, or he actually is consciously more of the traditional sense of what Doug Mentz did back in the 80s, of him just putting on a role. I don't know. Anyway, always interesting to hear your thoughts, Lena, and thank you very much for that. Finally, from our Facebook group, before we jump onto Instagram, I've got one comment here from Jeff Narucki. And Jeff writes, one of my favourite issues of my favourite run. The profile gets a clue about what he is really up against. Mark leans into his illness in the worst possible way. This issue was a realization that there was no going back for any of the sides. Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. It is one again, it seems like it's a consensus. It's one of the stronger issues, of the Huston run. And yeah, everyone seems to have similar thoughts. But yes, I guess, Jeff, similar to Lena above, you're mentioning Mark leans into his illness in the worst possible way. So again, whether this representation of DID is done correctly, whether in fact Mark is putting it on, it's kind of ambiguous in that sense. But yeah, thank you so much, Jeff. Now, finally, moving on, we've just got a few comments from Instagram. I'm going to lead off with a very short one from Zod76. Hello, Zod76. Great issue, Zod says. And I guess a person, a few words, it sums it all up. There it is. It certainly is a great issue. Another comment here from Make Mine Moon Knight. And no mincing with words here. Fucking love this issue. One of my all-time favourites. From Moon Knight messing with that shield head shrink, making him believe he's talking to Khonshu through Mark. Loved seeing Marlene lose her shit on those street thugs too. Great issue. # this is Moon Knight. Thank you so much, Make Mine Moon Knight. I had a sense that you'd love this issue. Again, it seemed like a very strong issue. I think it almost embodies what people like about the Huston run. Apart from issue 1 of the bottom, which is such a great way to kick off the series, I think issue 13 really does kind of sell it, what Huston's all about. And finally, a comment from SK Metal. Loved Moon Knight 13 all these years on. I was so bummed that Charlie Huston left after this issue, as this was a perfect capper. Tomm Koger's art is amazing. I love to see him back for more Moon Knight. The profile and Mark working together was a blast. The violence was brilliant and fitting. Seeing Marlene go off like that cemented she'd be my choice for Moon Knight if anything happened to Mark. Mark's slaying of the war criminal felt very horror movie-like and justified. Yeah, good point there. He jumps through the windscreen. It was very, it was very kind of scary with the reds and the dark and the shadows. Also, I love how this issue mocks the superhuman registration too. Moon Knight 13 is a great example of how to do an event tie-in. Yeah, couldn't agree more. SK Metal. As mentioned, it's just one of the stronger issues that is a tie-in, and it doesn't feel like that, there's an obligation to be part of a tie-in or to be part of an event. It definitely stands on its own 2 feet. So there you go, Loony listeners. Those are your thoughts on Moon Knight Volume 5, Issue 13. Such a great issue. Look, again, I wouldn't mind even a couple of months from now or whatever revisiting it again. It's just, there are so many issues from Moon Knight that you can always revisit and reanalyze and go over again. And this is certainly one of it, and testament to the feedback we received from it. So thank you so much, Loonies, for dropping in your thoughts. It's always great to hear different perspectives, but it's also great to hear of a general consensus as well. And certainly this issue comes out favourably. That about wraps us up, Loony listeners. I've only got a couple of things to say now to take us out. To end this episode. And next phase, episode 234. Look, it may drop earlier than you think. And this will be hopefully just a short, sharp episode just to bring us all up to speed with the rise of Set. So I've been working away. We're up to episode 3, but I've got material enough for a combined, potentially a double episode, so episodes 3 and 4. Looks like it'll be clocking in at about 15 minutes for this next part. So a sizable episode, and I thought I'll just drop it off as a standalone episode before we get back into our usual proceedings. And so 15 minutes long as opposed to our usual vignette style of, it could be anywhere from like 4 minutes to 7 minutes. And a little episode for the Rise of Set. So, just a little recap for everyone as well, if you have been following. I know it's a long time between drinks, it's every month or so. So what we know Rebecca and Dr. Hex are hurtling towards the safe house at this stage. They've fought some demons up on the moon jet, but they've escaped in an escape pod. Dr. Hex seems to have been infected with something, and he's gone into some sort of coma. So Rebecca's got a lot to deal with there. At the same time, we got introduced to a chief inspector, Inspector French, and there's an investigation that's gone underway for the murder at the Flogo water treatment plant. And that water treatment plant, for those that remember in season 1, we had the leader there poisoning it. And I guess explaining why everyone in the city is going mad. And so this upcoming double episode will take up where we left off with the rest of the High Priests, yours truly and Khonshu, Hellfire, and a new character, Safari, that we saw in one of the end credits. They're at the safe house. There are a couple of other characters or heroes turning up, which is good to see. And then we'll also jump to the likes of Quantum Man, the Professor, and Looney Tunes. They're currently in a van. Again, from season 1, they kind of fought against each other before becoming a team, and they're on their way back to the safe house. But as always, trouble will follow them. So be sure to check out episode 234 very shortly after this episode drops. That should be a fun one. And as always, I guess, again, if you check out patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight, please check it out and consider becoming a patron or patroony. There are plenty of incentives. I'm racking up some bonus episodes, which I'll sprinkle throughout from here towards the end of the year. Only exclusive for patroony members. Check it out. But also stuff like, you get insight into more of the serial. You get access to scripts, you get uncut versions of the episodes, you get videos of particular episodes where we do decide to video, so you can see, I guess, the interactions. You can see my mug on there, you can see the lockdown hair happening, all that sort of stuff. So please go check it out. As mentioned at the top of the show as well, our sponsors, Fringe Knight. You can support Daniel Doing's Patreon page at patreon.com/Fringe Knight 27. Great comic, as I said, great creator. And he just needs some help there to produce his comics, which obviously take a bit of time and effort and money to do. As well as Tombs by Drew Tombs. So Drew has got a couple of ventures happening. Tombs with a Z. So you can support that on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/tombs. Tombs, Tombz. And also Drew has Lurk Music on Bandcamp. So that's Lurk Music with a CK at the end, .bandcamp.com. And you can support his show, his music there, by purchasing tracks or albums, whatever takes your fancy. All this will be in the show notes, of course, as well, so just click the links. Finally, Dreamland Comics from Schoenberg, Illinois. If you use the code MOON, you'll get 20% off their online store for any of the back issues. Go get yourself some classic Moon Knight. And finally, we are part of the Collective as well, so a band of like-minded podcasters. I want to give a shout-out to some newies. So they are the Ghost Spider Groupies by Pax and Abigail, doing great stuff there about Spider-Gwen. Go check them out. But then you also have the likes of I Am Your Target Demographic on YouTube, all kind of geek and pop culture related. And I'm going to choose Signal of Doom by the big man, Dave Finn. Weekly comic and geek culture stuff, all the greatest news and reviews from there. Finally, you can, as mentioned, I think at the top of the show, did I say that? Yeah, probably did. On email, feedback@itkmoonnight.com. We do have a website, itkmoonnight.com, so go check that out. You can see, you can access all the old episodes from there, just as well as a bit more info, should you want to peruse it. There's also Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal, and Podchaser, of course. And speaking of which, on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, if you do leave a review, that would be very much appreciated. Hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully 5 stars. And it just allows us to kind of pop up a bit more for people who may be Moon Knight fans or looking for something Marvel or Moon Knight related. The more reviews, the more we pop up as suggestions. So helps spread the love and share the love of the show. Anyway, Loonies, that is enough from me. I'm hoping to edit this properly. I've had to use the mute button still coughing up here and there. But I hope you enjoyed it as well. I look forward to dropping episode 234 too. Keep your eyes out on that. And maybe reacquaint yourself with parts 1 and 2, episodes 1 and 2, which dropped a bit earlier. Again, I might add that in the show notes for you. As always, Loonies, take care of yourself, have a great weekend, and may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.